Happy Wine Wednesday, everybody. Hope started off well. Hope you've had an amazing week. Hope your seahorse, reef, and other freshwater, any kind of tanks are doing fabulously. Hope your week was better than mine and apparently Cheryl's. And I'm sipping on some Chardonnay tonight. I don't have any at the top comments. We're just going to chat tonight. So if you're joining us in the chat, ask any questions you want, or we're just going to chat, right? If you're on Instagram, as usual, until they change things, I can't make the can't even think of the word. I can't make it look good. So I know you're seeing like Holly and half of me and Cheryl, but you can always listen in on Instagram. And if you want to actually watch the video and comment and participate, hop on over to YouTube, search Seahorse Whisperer, and you'll see us live at the very top. Other than that, I've got Cheryl and Holly with me this week. Just another open chat, calm week. So, Holly, I know you had some things you wanted to start us off with. So, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So anyway, I had a fun little overnight trip. I got to go to San Diego for my 26th wedding anniversary was on Sunday. But last Thursday, because that was the time I could get a good deal on a room, have dinner at a fancy restaurant there I've been wanting to go to for a long time. Besides the seahorses, I'm into the tiki culture and that kind of thing. So there was a place there called the Tonga Room that's in the Fairmont Hotel that I've been wanting to go to for a long time. So got to visit that and have fancy dinner and drinks. And it's kind of like eating in the tiki room at Disneyland because they have tropical storms that come through now and then, and it's decorated all Polynesian. They've got a big lagoon and a band plays out on a barge, and very cool place. But part of the trip, we got to go to Aquarium of the Bay, which is in San Francisco.
Ooh, yeah, nice.
And that was cool. Spent a couple hours there and checking out all what they have is our local marine fish and sharks and things. Like they have the huge tunnels that you can walk through where the sharks and fish swim over you
I
and
love
around
those.
you, which is cool. And I shared with the people working there that I had seahorses. And so everybody was excited about that. They don't have seahorses there,
Really?
but they have pipefish. There's a pipefish called the bay pipefish that's native to San Francisco, I guess, and they're huge. They're like this long, big pipefish, and they're bright green. They look just like a piece of grass. That's how they hang out in the weeds. So got to see those. And it was
not to
cool
interrupt you,
talking
but
to people at the aquarium because I learned a lot about how they run a huge aquarium like that.
yes. Well,
And
before
they
you go,
learned
wait. Before you go on about that, because we want to hear about that, but I want to say, guys in the audience, if you're interested in having a Wine Wednesday where we talk about other things that we're into besides seahorses, like, who would have known that Holly was into tiki? I mean, if you wanted to have a Wine Wednesday like that, Holly's raising her glass, so am I. So if you want to have a Wine Wednesday
yes,
like that where we all share what we're
one of
into
my
besides
tiki
seahorses.
glasses.
Oh, sorry. But if you want that, let me know. Go on, Holly. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
Tell me more about the aquarium.
So anyway, they said they run about, one of the ladies that works there told me they run about 750,000 gallons of water in their aquarium. It's connected, of course, to the bay and circulate water through. So that's why, most of our public aquariums are always on the ocean. They're running such large amounts of water. That's the only way to do it. About temperatures in the tanks and chillers and stuff. And she said they keep their tanks, their target temperature is 50 degrees. And she said we get concerned when we're hitting 55. You know,
Wow.
we have to beef up the chillers. So much colder water. But yeah, so that was fun.
I love talking to people from public aquariums. Like every year at MACNA, Paula Carlson comes, and it's just fascinating to hear. I mean, like Cheryl takes care of all these multiple tanks, and some are connected, but taking care of a system like that, like Paula or Chris from Australia does, is just insane.
Just
but
huge.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the other thing I was talking about is what before we're on, I was just telling you. So I've been really unhappy with my display tank because when I started it years ago, I used live rock. And it's just been a pain in the butt.
Yep.
For years. So I'm planning on swinging that out and going artificial. And I'm not using like very realistic stuff. It'll probably be like the Disney cartoon seahorse tank, you know.
That's not Disney looking though. That's cute.
But yeah, so this is cool. The thing I have some concerns about switching over. Here's another piece. So these were given to me for my birthday by family members. And I had put them on my Amazon wish list. I found them on Amazon. And these particular ones, they're not hundreds of dollars like most of the ones I see to do a piece of artificial reef. It's like $400 or $500 for a big one. I'm like,
right.
Who are you kidding? I don't have that kind of money. So
I could own the coral. I mean, shit.
yeah. So anyway, I have concerns about switching over because I still have in the tank, and they're gradually reaching the end of their lifespans. But I have peppermint shrimp, a little hermit crab guys, and I have a blue spotted goby in there. So they like hiding places and caves and things like that. So I don't want to leave them without habitat that they like, taking the rocks out. And I want to give up. So these have caves and things.
Yes.
But then I'm worried about the seahorses getting stuck in it.
Right.
So I had some ideas, and I'm not sure. You guys can give me ideas too if you think of stuff. One thing I found, I got this huge bag of plastic plants for $5 on Chewy.com. And I use these a lot in my tanks already. I use them for the fry. I use them in the hospital tank. I use them in my grow out tank. Sometimes I stick one in my display tank because the seahorses like to hang on to them. But another thing I use them for is to block the seahorses from getting stuck in things.
Right.
Like if I have a piece of coral that has, like something like this, for instance, is the kind of thing my seahorses like to get stuck in. If there's one about
they get stuck.
Or size. So I'll stuff a piece of a plastic plant in the hole, and they don't know that they can't push through it. They don't even try.
Right.
They think it's solid. So it fools them and they don't get stuck. So I'm thinking, I don't know if there's some sections of this on, where they might be getting stuck. I can stuff some in there to prevent that.
Not a bad idea. And I want to hear what Cheryl says.
Ideas and suggestions from anybody.
Yeah. And we're gonna let Cheryl give some suggestions too in a second. But I had one question for you, Holly, really quickly. And we talked kind of a little bit about this last week. The one thing that I'm super afraid of in going all artificial, well, there's two things. Number one is making sure that my ulterior filtration is adequate if you remove the rock. And second of all, so I want to know how you've accomplished that. And then second of all, with the materials, like last week you were talking about the, stones, I think, Jen, I can't remember exactly. I'm sorry, but the crystals.
The crystals, yeah.
Yes. And so my question with these items that you've gotten off Amazon is, how do you check to make sure they're saltwater safe? Because I mentioned last week I got a freshwater plant or a fake anemone, and it started dissolving in the salt water. It didn't do very well. So how do you go about that?
I find out when they're in the tank. I try to get stuff that says, like, this is Exotic Environments Reef Reflections. You can't see the tag, but anyway, it says lifelike detail and textures, handcrafted polyresin replicas, safe for freshwater and saltwater. Rinse
There you
before
go.
you. So
There you
a
go.
lot of them will say that, but like the plastic plants and stuff, I trust them. I just put them in there. And usually, if they're going to have a problem, where I find out is in the bleach bucket. Seriously.
Well,
and if they
go ahead,
have
tell
problems,
me.
then they're cheap. I get more.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And Cheryl, I think you've talked about the. Go ahead. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things you need to watch out for with those, basically, they're a plastic coral display. And when they have holes through them, what tends to happen, this is what you need to be aware of, is they collect detritus because they have a much lower flow. So you need to really pay attention to that when you use them.
Mm-hmm.
I have some, I don't use them much anymore, but it's one of those things where they look nice and the seahorses love them, but you have to pick them up and blow out any detritus that's collected in there, because everything's going to get blown in there and it's going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, underneath. You're right.
That's
and even
advantage to these. I'm thinking, because I can't pull the rock out of my tank.
Right. Whereas you can pull that and clean it. Right.
Move them around and pull them and clean.
And Cheryl, you said last week something about, I can't remember exactly, but I can't remember what metal it is. But sometimes they use a certain
in plants,
iron.
Some of them have wire. Mm-hmm.
What did you say it is?
I have one in my freshwater tank. It's like grass. It's like a big, tall, grassy thing. But inside the plastic, the stems like fit over wire.
Yes.
So there's wire on the inside of the plastic.
That
is freshwater, I believe, at least for a while, not in saltwater.
And it's like even sponge filters. When you buy the sponge filters, a lot of times the bases, if they've been in a tank for any length of time, if you take them out and look at the bottom, there's rust on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Right, no good.
Yeah, I already mentioned
and
that too. There's another thing.
It's not designed to withstand salt water, and you have to be aware of that when you're buying products.
Right.
And I bought these magnets because I was using to make dishes for the seahorses using soap dishes and things around the house. And I found these magnets on Amazon that were supposed to be saltwater safe. And they're coated with something. So I'm like, okay, we'll give these a try. Well, they started rusting after a while.
It's terrible.
So yeah, you just kind of have to watch and pay attention, I think, and do your best. But if you notice, you start to see metal or you start to see rust, then you have to pull it out.
Yeah. One thing you can do is, like, if you're going to use like a sponge filter or some of this other stuff, you can actually treat it with basically either a PVC glue or some other form of sealant.
Yeah.
And you can prevent it.
Or what about like marine paint? Like a marine spray paint? Like boats and stuff? I'm
always cautious about any chemicals because anybody can say it's safe, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is. Mm-hmm. So when I bring in something new, I test it out in a separate tank.
Good idea.
And wait to see, is it going to deteriorate? What's it going to do? Because I've never lost seahorses, but I've seen enough potential problems that if I'd done it differently, I could have.
Well, and the Seahorse Corner said for the resin decorations that are hollow, she's drilled holes and stuck an open airline through the hole, and detritus doesn't build up. That's a really good idea.
That's a good idea too.
Which is exactly the kind of mentality I have. I use rock rather than decorations, but I literally put a piece of flexible tubing in a hole through the rock, bring it out the other side, and that holds the airline in place. It also gives circulation to that area and helps reduce the potential for a buildup of any detritus in the area.
Wait, you use rock, Cheryl?
I drill rock.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah,
All right.
I drill holes in rocks.
But you make your rocks. You got your own thing going on. It's not like live rock. Anyway,
She makes bases for these. I hadn't thought of that because the bases to
they're $20.
Yeah, I get this like on Ocean Aquaria, and yeah, well, the thing itself is really expensive, but yeah, the base is expensive too. And I hadn't thought of that because it's got a big screw. You can make your own, like you said, out of a rock. If you have
but did you see the post I made where I was actually using rock, drilling it, and fitting those in there?
Yeah,
and it holds them in place. It looks natural, and it helps increase the biofiltration.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's how I got the idea.
There's and if you're someone who's still interested in just using rock, I'll try to post when we're done a picture of my 65-gallon back when it looked nice, but when I was taking care of it. But point being, I actually had rock handmade. The company's no longer in business, or I'd shout them out. But literally, I have pieces of rock that fit into other pieces of rock. They're all easily removable. Some of them are too heavy, and it became a problem because it's still rock, but they're like shaped into this beautiful coral, or shapy kind of thing. I'll try to show it.
Yeah.
And hey, Shyla, great to have you here. We love newcomers. Let's hear what you're doing down in Singapore. Great to have you. Anyways, go on, guys.
Well, what I was going to say is, for me, if I use, I picked out, I'm experimenting. I spent $7 and they ended up sending me 12 of those nylon screws from Aquaria.
One of the Aquarius. Go on.
Ocean Aquaria.
Cheryl's had a long week. We're just glad she's here. Go on, Cheryl.
Yeah, I've had a very long week, but it's one of those things where I'm building them, and they actually look good. And as long as I keep the flow going, I don't have a collection of detritus in them. Plus, since I also augment with live food, it gives shrimp and amphipods places to hide, which increases hunting in your seahorses, which is a much more natural way for them to feed. And it's an experiment right now, but all of a sudden everybody's courting. So
nice.
They must like something.
Right. I just love that you and Heather both had the idea of using the airline to kind of get rid of detritus. That's a really good idea. And I know, Holly, we shared some of the same problems with rock in the tank. And I'm actually, like I said, at the Aqua Shella Chicago, I'm trying to be involved in setting up a really cool seahorse tank for display, like as of the Aquascape. There's nothing wrong with having a beautifully aquascape seahorse tank. But when you're trying to breed, or if you're trying to long-term keep the seahorses for other reasons, then, you kind of, as Holly and I have, moved towards, maybe they're actually not doing so well.
Straight up.
Not just lazy, but as we talked last week, I feel like the rock, because it does soak in and release like phosphate and all this other stuff, even dry man-made rock, you put it in the tank, organics are gonna start getting on those porous holes, and it's gonna have phosphate in it and stuff, and algae grows on it. I mean, I don't see algae almost anywhere else except for on the rocks. It's always on the rocks.
It depends on
And when it's on, well, but when it's on like shower curtains, as Seahorse Corner so cleverly invented, or fake plants, it's easy to pull them out and bleach them. Versus, as Holly said, pulling out rock and scrubbing it is a whole different thing.
When I start getting algae on a piece of rock, I pull it out, soak it in a bucket of hydrogen peroxide,
Right.
and then I scrub it with a toothbrush, and then I dry it out.
Now, wait, I'm curious about this though, Cheryl, because I was with you for scrubbing it with peroxide. But if you have a tank, like you have multiple methods of filtration. So this was the other question I had for Holly. I want to hear Holly's answer too. But if you have a tank that has no other filtration besides rock, let's say, you can't pull all of those pieces of rock and dry them out and any of that stuff. So what do you do then?
First of all, I never pull more than one rock at a time.
Okay.
And that is cleaned and scrubbed and thoroughly rinsed and put back in. So I'm not blowing my biofilter. And that is very important to keep in mind. The other thing is I use fairly low lighting on my tanks, so I don't tend to get a lot of algal bloom. It's playing with the system to get it to give you what you want.
Yep. Every week I say, don't feel bad because Cheryl's perfect. She's been doing this forever. So she's the expert. She's figured it out by tweaking her tank. But Holly, how are you? Go ahead, Cheryl. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I've been at this just with seahorses for over 17 years. And before that, I had reef tanks. So it's easy for me to say, do this or don't do this. But when somebody's starting out, they don't have the same. It's like I can look at a seahorse and say, oh, trigger breathing. It's probably ciliates, time to treat. And I can catch it within a day because I know what I'm looking for. And so it's easier for me to do a lot of this stuff. That's why I try to help out people that are brand new and encourage them, because it takes time. It's just like, how do you raise fry?
Yep.
God help me when I raise fry.
Right. You gotta learn your seahorses. And no, that's why I appreciate so much that Cheryl and Ray had games for his grandchildren tonight, so he couldn't be here. But they come every week to Wine Wednesday and they share. They're on Seahorse Sources group and Seahorse Savvy's group sharing. And if you have a problem or a serious in-depth question, you can come here to Wine Wednesday or go to those groups and ask the question, and then they'll help you to no end. But I just always try to say, even I am intimidated when I hear Cheryl say, oh, well, you just adjust the flow so that all the food goes in one corner. I'm like, I spent 20 hours trying to adjust the flow, and my food still doesn't go in one corner. Okay, so I'm just saying, don't feel bad.
It's one of those things where it comes with practice. Right. I'm the person to say that when I first started trying to raise seahorses, did not go well. And I actually at one point decided I was either going to get rid of my seahorses or I was going to figure out how to raise their fry. And
thank God you did.
Quite deadly serious about that. But it's one of those things where after a period of time, it's like people will show a picture of their seahorse and want to know what's wrong with it. And I see trigger breathing and open mouth, and I'm immediately thinking parasites, ciliates, that kind of stuff. And for me, it's easy because I have been doing this a long time.
Yeah. Well, and you helped Francis. Francis is in the audience. Hey, Francis. Jump in if you want. But and he has a question. But let's finish what we're talking about here real quick. But no, I just try to make sure anybody new who watches us or talks with us doesn't feel intimidated, because Cheryl has been doing this a long time, and she had to learn it. We all have to learn it, and we're all here to chat and help each other. That's the whole point of this.
The point I'm trying to make is don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. And turn to people like us and Cheryl and, get the answers you need, like Francis did.
Well, it's like this last week, my HVAC went out.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. It's been a real fun little over a week.
Oh,
The heat pump was still barely working. We were getting down below freezing.
mm,
First thing, I have my heaters and I have my Inverts that'll shut off the heater if it starts to overload. Okay, so right there, I was able to keep my tank stable. Hallelujah. The house, we were putting on 2 and 3 blankets at night to stay warm enough. Then the actual heat pump went out on Monday, finally conked out. I already had set up an appointment. Had them, I called them because they know I'm keeping seahorses and all. On Monday, said, okay, now the heat pump's gone out. My house is down into the 50s. And that was in the warm part of the day.
oof.
They said, we will be out first thing tomorrow morning, which was yesterday. They were here. It took them about 6 hours. I've got a brand new HVAC,
Oh, good.
top of the line, and it's supposed to be 30% more efficient because it's a new model than other heaters. So I get a $500 rebate from the IRS, a
Woo!
$450 rebate from our local energy company, and I'm still
Yay.
looking into more rebates. So that's something
Hey,
else to think about.
but also you just made a good point that in order to avoid these disasters, make sure you have ink birds and different things
Yeah.
to control. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've got some questions coming in, but Holly, I did want to before we top off this subject, what is your plan? Because I can't remember which tank has what. So what is your plan for
So I'm
filtration as
gonna
you remove
show
the
you. I'm
rock?
gonna turn off the camera real quick so I can
Okay.
get there. And in the
Okay.
meantime, while I'm walking, one thing that does concern me is the biofilter part of it. Like,
Right.
we were saying, but I've been gradually pulling rock from the tank and it's been okay. I don't even have anywhere near a third of the tank that's live rock at this point.
Hmm.
So what I'm going to show you is how I do my sumps, and I'm thinking about
Yes.
possibly adding K1. So this is the sump to the grow out tank, but my display tank is set up the same way.
Okay.
So we'll see if you can see. I have to angle it right.
Yep.
So,
Angle down a little bit.
Okay, that's your sound.
okay. Yeah, so in the middle chamber, I have bio balls and a bunch
Okay.
of sponge filters. So in the display tank is similar, except for it has 2 or 3 times as much bio balls as this one does, and it's a smaller tank. Now, what I want to do is try to fit a K1 media reactor, add it to that, but I'm not sure because I would do it. I've seen how to make them online using like a 3-gallon water jug, but I'm not sure that biggest size would fit in the middle chamber of sump.
Okay.
Well,
And
go ahead.
move around, so I could move them as to make room, but I don't think a 3-gallon jug is going to fit in there for the K1.
Yeah,
How big is the tank again?
The thing is,
Well,
Holly,
the
with
is
that,
about 2 gallons.
No. How big is the tank? How many gallons
The
is the tank?
display tank is 55 gallon,
Okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
how big is your sump?
20 gallon. At least as far as what it holds, as far as water, about 20 gallons.
One of the things, remember, bioballs are actually designed for aerobic metabolism, which converts nitrites to nitrates. But it's not going to do anything for your ammonia. So I have, if you want bioballs, I'll send you a garbage bag.
Well, I have tons of them, and that's why I use them because I've had them so long. I've had them, so I didn't have to buy new stuff. But I run airlines into them.
The K1 media reactors essentially are also designed for aerobic metabolism.
Yeah, so they're tumbling.
And, are you familiar with the Coral Life Super Skimmers. They're basically just a big round cylinder.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, I cut the innards out of those because I've always hated them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using K1 media. And quite frankly, there's more than enough in each system. I have no problems with the parameters. And they take up about 60% less space than a 3-gallon jug.
Actually, folks, there's a video that Cheryl and I did together where she shows how she makes a K1 media reactor out of the Coral Life skimmers. And I would say, Holly, that
I have
at
this
least
old cyclone skimmer, but it's a hang-on back. It isn't like a tube.
well, I'm going to link the video. You got to see the video to understand how
Well,
Cheryl does it. But what I would say is that I think, first of all, Holly, that you using the bio balls in the same way that you would use K1, if you're making them tumble with the airline, are they tumbling?
No, there's not enough
Okay.
air for them to be tumbling. No.
Okay.
and
Well, I need to finally post my video. I used a 1-gallon Pepsi bottle or something. I can't remember what it
Oh,
was.
like or a
But
2
a
liter?
1
Like a
gallon.
2
No,
liter
it
bottle?
no, because my tank is a 40-gallon on one. A 2-liter
Mhm.
would not fit. It would not fit.
Mhm.
So I used a 1-gallon. But the thing is, when you have that tumbling K1, it works even better than most media. So
Mhm.
you don't need as much. It has
Yeah,
been more than sufficient. I'm not
that's
worried about pulling my
why
rock.
that's why
it's
I
got
have it in mind. I've been wanting to get some for a while, and I'm like, that'd be good. But I don't know. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of rock in that tank, really.
Right. So
So
you're
I think
already
most of the filtration is in the bio balls.
right.
yeah,
Because
what
I
you,
have no I all I have for my grow out tank is the bio balls as far as biological filter.
yeah.
Right.
And
One of the things you can
it's
keep
been
in
fine.
mind with the K1 media is it was originally developed for sewage treatment to purify water
Yes. Yeah.
prior to going back into the rivers. It has a very large surface area, so it takes
Mm-hmm.
substantially less space than
For sure.
most other aerobic
Mm-hmm.
filtration systems.
But I'll
And
tell you one thing, it's a pain in the butt when your pump stops working, your air pump, and then the K1's no longer spinning. But Dan has told us repeatedly that if the air stops spinning and the K1 stops tumbling, it still works.
It'll
It just
be
works like
okay.
bioballs.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
works
yeah.
like bioballs. So what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is I appreciate all opinions, but I think the bioballs are obviously working for your display tank. I don't
Yeah,
think there's
they've
anything wrong
been
with that filtration
working
method.
for both tanks. But
Right.
I'd like
So
to switch over to the K1 at some point, you
well,
know.
I've got extra.
And
Get
I'm
with me on the
thinking it's a
side.
good time.
Yes,
I
but
had,
go ahead,
I
Cheryl.
had bio balls for a period of time
Yeah,
and regular, I mean, some of the large filters that were specifically designed for them. And I phased them out because I could not maintain the kind of water quality that I wanted to. The
right.
K1 is a dream come true because it doesn't take much space. I have in
Mhm.
each tank, I have one small pump, an airline going in the top, and water pouring through it.
Yeah.
And I'm done. I don't even, I don't look at nitrites or nitrates very often anymore
Mm-hmm.
unless I see something that just doesn't look quite right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's incredibly efficient. It
Yeah, I
Yes,
takes,
don't
and
use
no,
mine.
the only
I
thing,
just take
I was
it
saying,
on now.
the only thing I was saying about the air pump is that every single time I've ordered one because it's cheaper on Amazon,
Yeah, yeah.
they always have 2 holes and I only need one, so or not
Yeah,
2 holes, two outputs. So then I've got to
yes.
cover that output somehow, or it's just wasting air,
I
yeah,
and I
I
have to
use
know
switch
one
them.
in the tank,
But
one in
whoa,
the
whoa, whoa,
tank,
hang
one in
on,
the,
hang on. So I was just saying that it sucks when the air pump goes out. So make sure you have backup if you're going to do
Yeah.
K1. But I have extra, Holly, and I'll send it to you. And I will finally
But
post the video of my making the 1-liter K1. Go ahead, Holly.
I'm
if you
thinking
need
like
air
a
pumps,
2 liter though would be perfect size for my sump. I think I could
If
do
it
like
fits
an
it,
empty Coke bottle or something. Yeah, that
yeah.
would. Like the 3-gallon jug won't. but I could fit a couple 2 liters in there easily in that.
Dan used other methods, and Cheryl's used the skimmers, and I've used the one. You can do it in almost anything.
But
The key is making sure it
there's a
spins.
lot of YouTube videos about how to make your own K1 reactors. And yeah,
Yes, but
barely.
Holly, my video will be the best video. We already know this, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
watch that.
Yeah,
And
it just doesn't take a huge amount of K1
No.
to be very
No,
effective.
they're
Whereas it
tiny.
takes-
I've seen them. They're like this size. You know, they're little guys, but they just have so much space. They're like,
Wait, hold on. Francis just asked a question.
Wait. No, hang on. You, Cheryl, hang on. What I was going to say is, Holly, you're absolutely right. Because they're tiny and they have the
so much surface
intricate
area.
holes,
Little holes
the surface
everywhere.
area, they do anaerobic and aerobic, and they tumble. So they're knocking off all the organic,
Right.
dead bacteria, organics, and everything. And it's really an amazing system. It still can work if your pump dies. It would work like BioBalls. So it's amazing. Dan's talked about this before in previous episodes. Watch. We're going to answer this question from Francis because it's about K1. Then we're going to go back to Francis's first question, and then we're going to go to Daniel's question. I did see it, Daniel. We're going to discuss it. But is a K1 tumbler necessary? Is that a separate product like a protein skimmer and filter?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary? It's not necessary.
They sell the K1 on Amazon for really cheap, and it's just a bunch of little plastic doodads.
I'll grab them in a second and show you what they are. It is not necessary.
Yeah.
It is not necessary. Wait, let me finish. You can set up a Seahorse tank with rock, with macros, with whatever you want, and it can be efficient. You can set up a tank with a sump, with BioBalls, and it can be efficient. K1 is a little more efficient because of what I just discussed and what Dan's talked about in previous episodes, because of the way that it works. And as Cheryl mentioned, sewage plants use it to clean water and stuff. It tumbles. I'll pull it out in a second and show you. Let me go grab it. But they're little teeny like wheels that look like wheels, and then they have ridges on the outside. You put them in a 1 liter, 2 liter, 3 liter skimmer shell, whatever, 3 liter. You put an airline in the bottom. I promise I'll post a video showing me doing it. You put an airline in the bottom so that it makes them tumble within it. You have holes in the top so the water comes back out, and it's your literal anaerobic and aerobic bacteria killing ammonia, nitrate, and nitrates. It's really amazing.
Cheap.
And it's cheap, but it's not necessary, to be clear.
So if you have an established sump, like I do, that's a few years old, and I'm going to add a K1 reactor to it, how long does it take roughly for the K1 to become
to start working?
Filtration.
It depends. When I cycle a K1 media reactor in a separate unoccupied sump when I do it, and I basically use pure ammonia to cycle it with, and once it's clearing everything I want it to clear, then again I'll clean it and put it into a tank. The thing with K1 though that you have to remember, and I've learned this very early on, is when you're first cycling it and you try to do samples with your test kits, they're going to come up with all kinds of bizarre colors. I mean,
but wait, before you get into that, because you're making a great point, Cheryl, but just for the basics, Holly, I personally also cycle K1 media in I do it in a bucket, just real simple. Salt water, K1, cycle it like you use the ammonia to cycle a tank.
Just like doing
cycle the K1, and
throw some Enzyme in there, and you're good to go.
Yeah, right. You can use bacteria. You can use all that, and the whole key is just like a tank, making sure it cycles within 20. It can have no ammonia, nitrate, or nitrates within 24 hours. However, I've also added brand new K1 to a tank, and it does take a minute. I would not remove all my rock or other filtration and just count on that to work. No, you can tell when the K1 starts working. It's not good to say this because the thing is, I've cycled K1 media in a bucket with ammonia, and it's been still white. And I've called Dan and I said I thought it turned like this dullish color when it cycled, and he said no, that's not true. If it is crossing the test, you can
Then it
1 to
is.
2 ppm, and
Mhm.
it converts within 24 hours. You're cool,
Mhm.
but in a tank adding it, I would wait at least like a month before I removed all
Gotcha.
other filtration. But if you're adding it and you already are going to
I'm
keep
not
the
in
other
a hurry.
filtration,
Yeah,
right?
I'm just
Well, then,
thinking I'll just put it in there and let it go, and then gradually,
or
and
I could
Well,
send you the,
yeah.
or I could send you the K1 and you
that'd
could
be
video
awesome.
and show me how you're cycling in a bucket, and we could post it on Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah, that
Maybe. But
too.
I'll send it to you either way. You just got to remind me. You already know that. But no, again, guys, K1's not necessary, but it is really helpful. Like in my tank, if I'm not worried about pulling the rock because I know the K1's handling things. I can't think of much else to say. But it does work. It tumbles, it knocks off the stuff, and it just works really efficiently.
And the beauty of it is it's not only does it work, it's very highly efficient, but it's also self-cleaning.
Right. Yeah.
That's the key word here is self-cleaning. It reduces the amount of crap you
Yeah.
collect in your sump.
That you're vacuuming off the bottom of your sump.
Yes,
I
exactly.
hear that.
And we can talk more about K1 in the future if you have any
Uh,
specific questions, ask them for sure.
yeah.
But it can be the only filtration. I don't personally use it as my only filtration, just because, like I said, I've had air pumps die, and
Well,
I
Well,
know
like
it
you
still
can see,
works,
like
but
in my sump, I have a huge skimmer in there. It's
the
like
thing with the
4 times
K1,
the tank.
yeah, but I'm
to keep,
talking more biological media.
Yeah.
the thing with the K1 to keep in mind is it was originally used to treat sewage.
Mhm.
And commercial fish breeders, I mean, big time commercial fish breeders, started using it and had amazing results. And it has slowly over the years, I started using it in about 2012. And it slowly over the years trickled down into the hobby. And a lot of people still don't even realize how effective it really is. They're
Chris
thinking
is
these
going to
little
join
white
us, guys.
pellets can't do darn anything.
Chris is going to join us. And yeah, I agree. And all I was trying to say to you guys is, again, it's not necessary. It's amazing. I'll post the
Mhm.
video. Hopefully you guys will share it and,
Another
use
tool in our
it.
toolbox.
Another tool. Exactly. I personally, again, because my air pumps die out, don't use it as my only filtration. I always have to have something else biologically. Holly's right. A
Mhm.
skimmer handles the mechanical, socks handle the mechanical, but for biological, what I'm doing in this tank as I remove the rock is I'm going to use aquachar, because aquachar starts off as doing the carbon things, but it ends up a biological media. So I've had aquachar in that tank for it, since a week
Oh,
after I
yeah,
got the
that
tank.
too. Of
So
that
now it's
there.
biological media. So I'll have a backup in case the K1 stops spinning and just works like BioBalls. All right, Chris, I'm working on it. Go ahead, you girls talk. Or actually, if Chris wants to back up and talk about this, we can. But we do have to get on to the questions. Francis said, kind of gross question, but is it normal for a seahorse to float while going to the bathroom? While I get Chris a link.
I'd have to see a video.
They do all kinds of stuff while going to. They usually just do normal stuff while going to the bathroom.
It may have been he was moving across the tank
Yeah.
and he had to go poo, or it may be that he's having some. Okay, after District goes to the bathroom, that then I would not worry about it.
So they're just high-end poopers?
Yeah.
Hey,
Well, your tank's
I see
they
horses
poop
poop
in the
wherever
food
they
dish.
want. Sometimes they're at the top, sometimes they're at the bottom, sometimes they do it on somebody else.
Yep,
No,
or
see,
in
I was
there
gonna
in the
say,
feeding station. I hate that in the morning when I siphon out the tank before I'm getting ready to feed them. Sometimes after I've siphoned the tank, they know they're going to eat soon, so they go to the feeding station and somebody poops in the feeding station
Oh,
before I
Lord.
put the food in.
And what I was gonna say is my seahorses, every seahorse, I swear, every seahorse I've ever owned, they'll be like swimming or sitting hitched, and they'll kind of look over at me, and all of a sudden you'll see this big purple fling, and they'll kind of look at you like, "What? I didn't do it." Kind of like a man saying, "I didn't fart," you know. Sorry, but that's how my seahorses behave, and I mean all species. They act like they didn't do it. All right. Next question. I hope that answered. If you need more details, if you're worried, Francis, post, tag Cheryl, tag me, tag anybody. Daniel wanted to know though, have you guys had any issues getting Hikari 16-ounce flat packs?
Yeah,
Flat-
last week actually I did. I had to get the smaller double, the like 5x7 or
Yeah.
whatever size that comes in a double. Usually I get the big long flat one, and yeah, they didn't have it. But that's the first time in a while that's happened, so I don't know if it was just them not getting it in stock for
Yeah.
whatever reason, or if there's a shortage. I don't know.
Shipping is a disaster right now. Look at the prices at the dang grocery store and our pump prices. Everything is undergoing major issues at this point in time. And part of it is the Soviet Union. Part of it is our own problems that we have in the U.S.
Supply chain.
So it doesn't surprise me that it's difficult. I mean, we've had blockades of boats around Los Angeles that have been trying to get on shore to unload their cargo for months. So
Sure.
doesn't surprise me.
I personally didn't run into that. I actually made the drive. I was complaining last week about the food at PetSmart not doing very well, being pieces. Now I have the actual shrimpies from the Hikari, and I don't know about 16-ounce. I got the one. The double that's not the 16-ounce,
The
right?
That's
double
what we have.
is smaller.
Yeah.
But I
The
like that
16
one
ounce
because
are
it's
about like
two.
this big square.
Yeah.
Well, my freezer is not only capable of keeping food for long term, but it's not even good enough. Like I feel like it defrosts too often, so I don't like keeping any foods that are open. So I love the flat packs because they're not cut into little pieces. But I like the double because then I open one and the other one's still enclosed and whatever. I don't know. That's just it's my crazy thought process. And I see all your other comments really quick before uh, Chris hopefully joins. Waylon, am I pronouncing that correctly? Waylon, I will tag when we're done the copy of the video where Cheryl shows setting up her reactor with a coral life skimmer, because I've got that video. And then also, if you want me to, I can go show you my reactor right now. It's not a reactor. It's a 1-liter bottle with an airline, but it works as a reactor. And I can pull it out and show you. And I also do have a video showing how I set it up. I just haven't posted it yet. But if you want me to go show you, let me know in the comments.
Yeah,
I'll go do
say, let's see
Kelly,
it.
I think
Okay.
Kelly, I think that's what the one I sent you was when I was first experimenting with setting it up and adjusting the flow.
Yeah.
I should probably shoot a video and send it to you of one that's been in a tank for a long time.
Well, Cheryl, I was talking about the video we did on I think it was Fry, and you were showing me but it is older, so I'll tag that, and when you shoot a new video in post it, we'll
Okay.
share it. Sounds good? Okay. And then Francis also said, I just wanted to clarify a few things. Francis said, okay, so K1 are similar to having a separate colony for the anaerobic bacteria, nitrate phosphate converting bacteria. Not phosphate, but they're more like the nitrifying. Like if you have rock to handle the nitrifying ammonia, I don't know the bacteria's names, nitrosoma and all that crap. Ammonia, nitrate, K1. Yay. That's the answer to that. And he also asked, would the probiotic supplement Dr. Cheryl's advice also go in the K1 reactor? I'm saying no. The The
No, it
probiotics
just
go in the tank or
water
in the
goes
food.
through it. You don't
Yeah,
put anything
it's
in it. Just your water goes
it's like
through
a
it.
rock.
It's like my bio balls, kind
Yes,
of.
better point.
It's just in the water.
Yeah.
Better point.
I would not add a probiotic supplement to them because by the time you're using them in a tank, they should already be fully cycled and ready to go. They shouldn't need any supplements of any kind.
Okay, Jimbo, I tried to say you're killing me, but I said you're illing me. Jimbo, you're killing me. Jimbo or Chris, are you coming to join us for our chat? Because I'm getting ready to let these two crazy ladies talk while I go try to get a video of my reactor or try to log in and do a video of the reactor. No, I keep saying reactor. It's not. It's a freaking 1 liter bottle with an airline. And
But
K1.
that is technically what it is.
Right.
You made your own.
Chris, 100% Jumbo, get your butt cheeks in here. All right, I'm going to stop being silly. Girls, do you have anything else to talk about if I go try to take a quick bit of this?
Oh, probably.
Okay, I don't want to leave dead air.
Anybody
So,
want to send me money to help pay for my HVAC?
no,
Yeah.
I'd rather hear you talk more about
bet
Seahorse
it's
poop.
expensive, even with all those rebates.
Chris said yes, he's jumping in. I hope you hurry up, Chris. But because I'm stalling because I want to go take this, but I want to get us on another topic before I walk away. I don't want any dead air, where the girls just sit there staring. Not that ever happens. We talk all night. But anyways, I will also grab the excess K1 that I'm going to send Holly and show what that looks like. But what can you guys talk about while I'm gone? If I go show a quick video.
Oh, I don't know. What, Cheryl? Cheryl hasn't updated us on her seahorses.
Yeah, Cheryl, update us on your Holly. Handle it.
Okay. Well, my yellow pair is dancing constantly, except for my little orange male who keeps trying to get between them. And today I caught the little orange male dancing for this younger orange female who suddenly is getting fat.
Aw.
So we'll see how it goes. In the
Aw.
interim, one of the things that I think has really helped put the two younger ones on a rapid growth path
Uh-huh.
is the amount of live food I'm feeding them on a regular basis. I think it's really helping them. And based on the research studies that have been done, feeding them a diet much higher, basically in amino acids, really does enhance their growth.
One thing I noticed when I moved the ones I'd raised, some of them, into my display tank with the bigger seahorses, they grew faster than what
They
once they
can.
were with bigger seahorses. It was like they're like, wow, I could be like you. I better get going.
Yeah, the thing is, typically what they'll do is they will be thinner. They won't bulk out as much, but they will put on length when they're doing that.
Yeah, I have ones in my grow out tank we were already talking about that are like that. Kind of the longer ones are skinnier, but they're filling out. They're getting big like my full grown ones now.
Exactly.
So they're like
the
good 7 inches or so, some of them. Like that female, we were talking about. She's a good probably 7 inches, I'd say. She's almost as big as the ones in the display tank now. Oh, and Dandy just turned 3 years old in my display tank. And I can't figure it out, but everybody loves his little dish.
Because it's down low, and they have to kind of hunt for it instead of it just being right in front of them. And they love him.
Yeah, no, they hang out.
There's no telling what that is.
I don't know. It's funny though, because I feed the other seahorses first because I don't want them all crowding him at his dish.
Yeah.
And they have their nice big magnetized dishes on the glass with hitches. And they like those, so they go to those first thing in the morning. I give them their food, and then once they're eating, by that time, because he's slow, Dandy makes his way over to his little shell on the ground, and he sits there and waits. I put his food in for him, and as soon as they see that Dandy's eating, they leave their own food and they all just flock to that little dish. It's
One of the
crazy.
reasons I broadcast feed, well, there's actually several, but one of the reasons I broadcast feed is to reduce competition for specific food. Although I still see it when I first introduce some frozen, you can see 2 or 3 seahorses all targeting the same glob of food that I'm dumping in the tank. But what it effectively does is spread out the food over the tank. Guess who's well, hello.
Hi.
Chris.
How's everyone
Good to
going?
see you.
You've been busy?
Been very busy.
I can imagine.
And I'm back. I'm back. Sorry, Chris, you had to wait. I was walked away. But Chris,
You're
I
good.
want to hear from before I share my little videos. Tell me what's going on with you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm going okay. So, yeah, there's been a lot happening lately. Got a lot to catch you guys up on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've just been on a little bit of a holiday, so I went back to the mainland and caught up with some family and that, which is really good. Yeah, so kind of got some announcements to make.
Yay?
Yay.
Or not yay? Okay.
I mean,
go
it
ahead.
depends on your perspective. It's probably a yay for me, maybe not so much a yay for other people. So I've actually resigned from Seahorse World. So
Really?
I'm going to finish up later this month. 25th is my last day. So
in other words, we need to befriend Jimbo so that he'll get in here and talk with us all the time instead of
definitely.
No, I'm just kidding.
Definitely
Go ahead,
get Jimmy in here. He'll do good. But
Do you have another position elsewhere?
no. So I'm just going to be moving back to the mainland to be closer to family and whatnot. Have a sort of a support network closer to me.
Which makes sense.
I've been down here in Tasmania for 5 years now, and especially during COVID and everything, it's been hard sort of being away from family and having restrictions and border shutdowns and sort of things limiting, actually being able to go see friends or family or whatever. And I'm just looking to change to have a bit of a better work-life balance. And so it's going to be a little bit sad for the Seahorse World not having me, I guess, but I'm sure others will sort of step up and, eventually someone will sort of replace me and they can, move on to the next chapter, which will be good.
I hope they care as much as you do.
Yeah,
whatever.
But, I think they're in pretty good hands with the existing sort of aquarium stuff. And, there's a lot of people that are, sort of quite experienced there. So I'm sure they're in good, capable hands.
Are you going to still try to find a job working with basically saltwater organisms, or?
Probably not at the start. So I'm just going to go back and find whatever sort of work that I can. I don't really have much interest in moving back to Melbourne or some sort of big city where there are sort of other public aquariums or sort of aquaculture in what I'm experienced with. Obviously, it's sort of the only real sort of seahorse farm.
Going through a life change
in Australia. Yeah, it's going to be a massive change.
Yeah, big change.
I mean, short of sort of going to work with Steve and his sea dragons, there's nothing even closely sort of related in this field in Australia. So it is what it is. I don't know where one logically goes to from Seahorse Farmer. I guess just find some other organism that you love and farm them instead. So who knows? Maybe I'll go be a shrimp farmer or something.
We still
like that.
hope that.
I can see you getting in seriously into shrimp.
Yeah, all I need is a shrimp costume now. I've got a seahorse costume, so now I just need a shrimp costume.
How do you ID all the different peppermint shrimp?
Yeah,
yeah, that's an interesting one.
He's gonna write a research paper about that soon. Is the lovely significant other going with you? Yes?
Yes,
Okay,
definitely.
good.
Wouldn't leave without her.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Because we
so
like her.
your significant other is going with you.
Yeah. So she'll be leaving
Oh,
Seahorse
no
World as well.
wonder he's getting serious about this.
Well, right, but we still are glad for Jimbo, who will carry on the tradition of making sure Seahorse Australia and Seahorse World run effectively and come to Wine Wednesday, Jimbo. Giving you that hint. You are now have to be here. No, I'm kidding. And we'll still have Chris on to talk about what he's doing in the mainland because we love Chris. And you're still going to be involved. Dan is no longer doing seahorses, but his expertise is still wanted on this channel. And yours is too, and as soon as you get into shrimp, whenever you do, if you do, we want your input on that too.
Yeah, well, I'll probably just go back to the mainland and start up my old fish room again and start breeding and keeping all sorts of fish and shrimp and whatever else interests me at the time.
You'll be like Cheryl, experimenting with stuff and teaching us new things. We love it.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I still got 48 tanks back on the mainland that I put into storage.
48?
Only 48. Yeah, I sort of downgrade. I did have 64 up and running, but I had to downgrade and I sold as many as I could. So yeah, but I've still got 48 tanks there ready to set up on a whim. So that should keep me busy.
Chris, I know you actually love seahorses. Like, you not only were farming them and doing the work, but you actually were doing special programs and got invested in the research and the books. Francis wants to know if you'll still focus on seahorses like Dan does, and still talk to us a little bit.
Yeah, I'll still be kind of in the scene, but I'll have a more hands-off sort of approach. So, I might still come and bug you guys and give you guys updates and still sort of give people help or advice where I can. But it just won't be my primary focus anymore, obviously. And
if you get a pair of hippocampus zebra that look good, let me know.
Well, he's not going to. He's getting out. Cheryl. Nice try, though.
I wish.
I want to
For those that don't know it, the hippocampus zebra is an inside joke because they are virtually impossible to come by. They are deep water species which have to be brought up in hyperbaric chambers to acclimate them. And to date, no one that I know of has had any success in raising them.
Yeah, a lot of people have tried. A lot of people have spent a lot of money, and a lot of people have failed so far. So,
yeah. Exactly.
So real quick, Chris, I want to make sure you get to, because we're going to chat with you. I want to show. I'm excited to show my stupid videos. So, did you have another announcement though, or can I show my video and then we'll come back to you? Tell me any other announcements.
I mean, we can go to your video and then we can announce some more stuff. We'll spread it out.
Okay. If Waylon's still here, I wanted to show you. I actually did go take the video. I sometimes don't do it, so I did. So here we go. All right. Let's see. So, and then I gotta go play. It's not going to be great focus because it's iPhone, but here we go. So this is the tank. There's a little seahorse right there. The tank's not doing great, but in the blue light, I didn't turn off. Sorry, but there's the reactor, and basically you can see the airline coming in. It's literally just there's holes on the top. There's holes on the side. The audio doesn't work apparently. The K1's in it. That's all I've got. I'll explain the bottom in an actual video, but then the airline comes in the bottom and makes it all tumble. So when I stick it back in the water, you're going to see it start spinning. And the bottom makes
the airline is not coming up through the mouth of the bottle. You have it into the bottom side of the bottle, right?
Yeah, let me hang on. Let me go back to that one because there was another one I did.
You want the air coming up from the bottom to keep everything tumbling.
Right. So I drilled holes
not
in the top.
The mouth where you drink out of it. It's above that part, right?
Well, hang on. It's in the top, holes in the top to let air out. And then I realized that it was too tall for the 40-gallon all-in-one. So I drilled holes in the side based on Dan's advice. And then the hole is right above the mouth so that it goes in. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I had a sponge at the bottom to stop the K1 from exiting, but it was making it too tall. It wasn't working. So the way that I did it was using a piece. I'd have to show you the whole video, but basically that is how my little reactor works. We'll watch it one more time and then I'll show you in the next video and we'll be done. But yeah, the airline comes in, it spins.
Tight, in your compartment. And I'm thinking if I do a 2 liter, it's not going to fill the compartment. It's going to move around in there. So
well, I used to have this. Wait,
or how do you hold them from tipping over and that kind of thing?
Okay,
just brace them with something?
Nope. I used to have 2 of the. So you can see one of them. Actually, let me start this over now again. Hang on, sorry. Watch this, and you'll see there's one still attached. I'm just lazy. Okay, so on the back side, you probably can't see my arrow, but when I lift it up, I'll tell you when to look. You'll see that there's still a suction cup attached. I had to.
Okay.
Right. So holes in the top, holes in the sides. Now, wait. I show you the K1. I show you the bottom, the airline. Now, look. Do you see the suction cup? See it now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I had 2 of them on there, but I did the holes where they weren't even, which is really stupid. But so it wouldn't stick to the wall because the suction cups were uneven. So as long as you make sure your suction cups are even, it'll stick to anything.
Gotcha.
I just
every way you can figure out but you have to figure out a way to make it from falling over from
right. Well,
right like that.
But it wouldn't if I had done the suction cups straight in a line. I just did them uneven, so it kept falling off. And because it was in a compartment, I said whatever.
For your little slot holds it in there.
Well, I'll explain the bottom. It's hard to explain because it's part of the sponge, and I couldn't keep the sponge, but I kept the part that goes into the sponge. I got to show you the video. Anyways, and the other thing that I was talking about earlier was that these stupid little airlines always have 2, so I literally have mine one side taped off with tape because otherwise it doesn't work. It won't spin it because it's blowing air out everywhere. Okay, done with my silly videos now. Stop that. But yeah, I hope that I'll try to post the actual video, but that's what's in my 40-gallon all-in. Chris, I know you're impressed. I can tell.
Yeah, definitely. Love it.
And is the K1 is that small for a 40-gallon? Yes, and it works very effectively. Dan used a 2-gallon type situation just like that. He used different methods, but for many more gallons, it doesn't take as much because it works so effectively. But I do also have rock in the tank. I'm just not afraid to remove it, and I'll let you know how that goes. But what were you going to say, Holly?
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, because online, mostly what I've seen people use is either the 2-liter bottle or a 3-gallon water jug, like you buy for like filtered water things.
Yep, I would have, and I'm going to go grab the actual K1 so you can see it dry. But I would have. I wanted to use a 2-liter, but it just with the 40-gallon, the height and the boxes in the back, it just wouldn't fit. So even the 1-liter in this tank, it was just a shorter distance. So I couldn't even keep the sponge at the bottom. I had to take the sponge off and find a way to keep the K1 in there because good. Thank you, Waylon. I know everybody's like, you're so silly. But anyways.
It does like to escape sometimes. And then it goes flying around in your sump. And you have to catch it before it gets into trouble.
Right. So now I'm going to let Chris do the rest of his announcements, and I'm going to go show you the bottom of the thing, how I keep it in. I have a whole video, but I'll just show you now, and I'll grab the dry K1. So Chris, do the rest of your announcements, please.
Yeah, cool. So I've had some stuff going on recently. There's been like a lingering question in the back of my head because many people, I mean, the sort of the seahorse community and I guess the scientific community is quite divided on what seahorses are legitimate seahorse species and what ones are synonyms or pseudonyms, basically, different names for basically the same seahorses. And so I've actually started reaching out to, I've started reaching out to scientific sort of people, so scientists who are studying seahorses or fish in general, and basically trying to definitively answer once and for all, that in this case is Hippocampus breviceps and Hippocampus tuberculatus one species, or are they their own individual species? Because of the way that Hippocampus tuberculatus was categorized way back when, apparently it was done in an improper way or something. It's been called into question many times over the years. And so,
are they going to use DNA testing on them?
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure who we're going to go through at the moment. We've actually got two options. We've either got the CSIRO, who we've been working with for, say, the spotted and red handfish projects, or we've also got another ichthyologist interested in specifically who wants to work on both of these to get a definitive answer before perhaps moving on to some other seahorses or cygnathids in general to answer more of these questions with other sort of closely related species, or maybe they'll be the same species, who knows, we'll find out. But because we have samples of both Hippocampus breviceps and Hippocampus tuberculatus both on hand, he's reached out to us, and we're going to try and help him with his research.
Is it Graham Short?
Yes, yeah, it is.
Oh, he's so amazing. He is the one who has come on this channel. If you guys want to see his interview, it's when we first started, so it wasn't great. But he came on the channel. He's a great ichthyologist. He is the one that helped Lucy determine that the seahorse that she caught was not a new species. It was actually a hybrid of,
Yeah.
So this is going to be really fascinating, Chris, as we figure out if these species are really species or whether they're just hybrids. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
Definitely. So on that note, we've actually got some hybrid seahorses as well that we're going to get tested to see if they are actually hybrids or whatever. We've had them since before I started, so I wasn't sort of involved with their sort of, I guess, parentage or sort of their breeding or their raising of those. And so we'll get those tested and get to the bottom of whether, they're a Subelongatus angustus mix or whether they're one or the other. Not 100% sure, so that'll be interesting.
And I'm curious if they'll extend that to figure out the CUDA complex and all that craziness. Fascinating.
Well, the CUDA complex is a disaster because the longer and the more we learn, the more we do DNA testing, the more we realize there's a lot of different that's why they call it the CUDA complex. There's a lot of different potential species within that group.
Or just adaptions. But Chris, we keep interrupting you. I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up.
Fine.
Finish, please. Go ahead.
So, might be working with both the CSIRO as well as Graham to try and figure out, who's who and what's what, which is good. It'll be a little bit sad. That'll probably all happen after I'm gone. But, I'm really, really glad that he's, looking into it so hard. And it's unfortunate that Australia's seahorses, Australia is such a rich biodiversity hotspot for seahorses and cygnathids in general. But unfortunately, not much scientific legwork has been done over the years, especially in terms of DNA testing and samples on hand compared to a lot of other species from overseas. There are still many seahorse species overseas in other places around the world that are very data deficient as well. But for such a biodiversity hotspot for seahorses, Australia is quite lacking, and we are quite lagging behind for many of our species. And so hopefully Seahorse World and these guys can hopefully turn that around and sort of get to the bottom of some of these harder questions over time.
Everything takes time. It's like they've been studying the interactions between Hippocampus reedi and Hippocampus erectus in the U.S. And it's now estimated based on DNA testing that roughly 30%, 30 to 33% are hybrids in the wild. And it seems like seahorses have a tendency to venture outside the box, so to speak.
Well, and that's my big theory. My big theory is that there were a couple of species, they adapt as they get washed to new places, or climate change, whatever. They go to new areas and then they adapt, and they some grow cirri, some grow more spikes. I know everybody disagrees with me on that, but that's my theory.
Kelly, that's
And
part of it. But the other part of it is when you're dealing with hybridization and
they're mixing.
changes. Well, more importantly, what they're doing is when they do something like that, they may be developing something on their genome that gives them an even higher survival percentage. And as such, that's where speciation occurs.
So for in layman's terms, basically an erectus looks at a reedi and says, "Oh my goodness, you got some pretty colors," and says, "Let's make a baby, and it'll be a better baby." Basically.
Well, that's one way to put it, but you're basically it's called natural selection.
Natural selection, yeah.
If one seahorse,
I call it pretty babies,
with a seahorse from a different strain, but they're virtually compatible, and their offspring then have a higher survival, possibly because they're better hunters, they're less picky. Who knows?
Cheryl, I'm totally half.
I'm sorry, I'm going into my zoology.
No, you and Chris want to talk scientific, real stuff, and I'm like, pretty babies. No, it's Dan wants desperately to talk, Chris. You do have to come back for the episode where Dan comes, and we hopefully get Art to come and talk about the article. And if not, we can just talk about it in general. I'm not ready today, but we do need to talk about it because you're bringing the important stuff that really matters. I just try to tame it down for the other people on the channel.
Well, it's like for years, the northern erectus and the southern erectus were considered two separate species. And again, zoologists are always arguing, do we lump or do we broaden? And so they decided that they're both the same species because they're close enough in DNA. But I can virtually guarantee you, given enough years, their DNA will not be that close because the northern side, they're smaller, they're shorter, they're broader, and they really like cold water as opposed to the southerns. So that's what natural selection is.
Well, I'm going to link, guys, anybody who is interested in this stuff, and even if you're not, you need to check out, I'm going to put a link as soon as we're done to the Graham Short video, because not only is he ridiculously intelligent, knows what he's doing, knows seahorses, cares about the species, but he's hilarious and he's fun and he's funny. Like when I first met him, I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to an ichthyologist. He's going to think I'm stupid. And he was like, nah, come on, let's chat. I mean, he's so cool. He's just a great guy. And I'm so glad I'll quit saying his name, but I'm so glad that's who they're working with. And I'm curious, how did you guys get connected? Was it Wine Wednesday? No.
Yeah, I have a question for Chris.
Wait. Hang on, Chris.
Yeah, so Graham's actually in Australia right now doing research on cygnathids, and he might actually be doing a trip down to Tasmania soon, but it'll probably be just after I'm gone. So probably going to miss him, but that's okay. That's how the cookie crumbles. But
you got
he's
to
going
take
to
care
keep
of
me in
you.
the loop as well, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, tell him we figured out Wine Wednesday, and he's welcome back anytime.
Exactly.
Chris,
Go ahead, Cheryl.
One thing I have always had trouble with is figuring out the difference between subs and Augustus. What is the main difference visually when somebody asks you which is it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The easiest way to know which one is which is where they're collected. So the habitat range for the Angustus extends far north past where you'll find Subilongatus, and Subilongatus extend far south around Perth and the southern half of WA, where the the Angustus don't. But if you have two seahorses and you don't know the origin of them, it's usually safer to assume that they're Subelongatus rather than Angustus, because so many more Subelongatus are collected than Angustus, because the capital city of Western Australia, which takes up pretty much more than a third of Australia's landmass, the capital's all the way at the very southwest tip of Australia. So basically, most of the collectors based in Western Australia are based near the capital, because that's just how
makes sense.
business works, because they are where most of the people are, and that's where they can make the most sales, etc. That's where the easiest shipping and everything is, and that's where the Subelongatus are. Now, a collector would have to go all the way up north, sometimes more than 1,000 kilometres, to basically go collecting and collect the Angustus. Not saying that collectors don't go up north and do collection runs. Most of the collectors probably do at various points. But basically, that's why Subelongatus are so much more prevalent in the hobby than Angustus. But to answer your original question, the differences between them, the Subelongatus, or the tiger snout seahorses, have more prevalent snout markings than the Angustus. The Angustus can still have some sort of faint sort of zebra markings or tiger stripe markings down along their snout, but it's a lot more prevalent in the Subelongatus. The Angustus are also much, much more spiny. So they're almost much more similar to Barbari or whatever. They're very, very prickly to the touch. Their spines extend much further, and their spines are actually much sharper as well. Like, just as someone who's handled and touched both species before, handling an Angustus, if it wraps its tail around your finger, you definitely know about it. Sort of all the spikes sort of dig in, and they've got a really, really tight grip. So it's like stabby, stabby, stabby. It's like, oh, buddy, can you please let go?
Just quit loving me so much. And wait, I wanted to say the reddish seahorse in the bottom, I think it's right for you guys watching, is Sam's Subelongatus. I can't say it. Subelongatus. Subelongatus, right. And you can, I know I can't make it bigger, I'm sorry, but you can see the tiger snout, or the striped snout, excuse me, and you can see the no spikes, a few maybe at the top, but good description, Chris.
Well, the reason I'm asking is I get questions of, is this a sub or is this an Angustus? And I always end up messaging somebody that I know in Australia, because I have a hard time being sure that I would be giving right information. They tend to look quite similar in many respects.
Well, now you know, spikier, less snout.
Yeah. Another difference between the two, another pretty significant one, is if they're fully grown seahorses, like if they're not still juveniles, Subelongatus have a much bigger sort of maximum size than the Angustus, and it's quite sort of noticeable. I've seen Subelongatus that get to like 20 or more centimeters, whereas usually the Angustus don't really get too much bigger, between sort of maximum size around sort of 12 to 15 centimeters.
And do they have the same needs though?
Yeah, I mean,
no. So I would say that the Subelongatus are a sort of a almost temperate but sort of subtropical species. They can handle the warmer temperatures a little bit, but
not
the
really
Angustus
recommended.
much prefer the warmer sort of more tropical seas, whereas the Subelongatus definitely prefer the cooler temps.
Can the Angustus handle cooler temps though? Does it just slow them down? I mean, like, because we always recommend cooler temps, not like what you're talking about, but
it can to a point. But you shouldn't sort of stray too much further
from
below
what
they would encounter in the wild. Otherwise, you might start running into problems.
Agreed, and thank you, Chris, for all your expertise.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, because I get those questions from people, and I literally always refer to somebody that I know in Australia to basically to determine which species it is, because in so many respects, I don't know enough, and I haven't seen them in real life to be able to, it's easy for me to look at a northern and a southern erectus or a reedi or some of the others, but those are ones I've worked with. But when I get into some of these Australian species, I have a hard time
Yeah, definitely. I'm just very lucky that I've been able to work with both species and have them in tanks almost not quite side by side, but almost. And once you've worked with them for a little while and you see them every day, you start noticing all the little sort of nuances between the species.
Exactly.
It's obvious, but when you haven't worked with them and been right there handling them and watching them grow, it's like I can look at a 3-4-month-old erectus or a reedi or combs or others that I've worked with, and I can say, okay, that is such and such. But I've never been able to work with these species, and I feel totally incompetent to advise people with them.
Yes, but that is why we're all so fortunate that you all come to Wine Wednesday, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had to do a plug. Anyways, but no, that's amazing. And Francis wanted to know, are Augustus the same as Hystrix?
No, different
Not at
species.
all, right? Right.
Yeah.
Where are Hystrix located?
It's like comparing like Cooter and Barbs or Whitey Eye and Subelongatus or whatever. They're just two entirely different species.
And I will go back to the previous questions, but I'm just asking the ones relevant to the conversation now. Do Augustus, Hystrix, and Subelongatus, I can never say that, require larger food options then?
No. So mysids are fine. That's all we've ever fed our Subelongatus, Angustus, most of our species. Mysids are the most nutritionally complete item of food that you can give your seahorses in most cases, and they're more than adequate for all the species that I've worked with. Short of the seahorses being too small to eat them, it would be the only concern, but depending on the size of the seahorses and the size of the mysids, they should be able to eat them just fine.
Okay, and now real quick, not to interrupt the awesome conversation, but before I forget, I'm going to show my little video of the opening to my K1 thingy really quick, and then we'll be done. Here we go. 1 second. Hang on, Cheryl. Let me show this, and then we'll go back to the conversation. I promise. I just want to show it before I forget in case Waylon has to go. All right, here we go.
There?
Yeah, he's still here. Yep. He's just taking a minute. Hang on, Cheryl. Let me show this real quick, okay?
I'll be back in a sec then.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, so this is the opening, and basically, I'll show in a video, but basically, it's the bottom of one of those blue sponges you buy at a fish store. Or it's the top of the sponge that you buy at a fish store. I had the sponge on it. The sponge could not, it made the K1 reactor too tall, but the little piece worked. So as long as I shove that little piece in, no K1 comes out. Only water gets out. And the airline goes right above the little piece and makes it bubble, makes it spin. So I hope that helped. And that's all I had to show, I think. Pretty sure. Yep, that's all I had to show. All right, so I'm done showing. I just wanted to show you the piece, and I'll describe it in more detail in a video or help you on the side. But anyways, okay, we're back. Holly, I guess it's just me and you, Chris, and everybody left.
No, I'm still here. I'm just stuffing my face and don't want to be on camera.
No, you're fine. I'm dealing with. I'm literally braiding my daughter's hair, so that's why I'm not showing. I'll show in a second. And Francis did ask, just an open airline, not an air stone in the K1, right? Correct. Yeah. I use a drill to make sure that the airline fits really tightly. Like the airline, I have to like push it through so that it doesn't come out, and it fits right into the hole. And I put it right in the middle of the opening, like shove it in to where it's halfway through, and then it bubbles up. Again, the video will do a better job of explaining, but I hope that helped. Okay, Chris, what else? Until Cheryl comes back with the conversation, was there any other announcements or?
That is a really good question. I think that's about all of the announcements that I can sort of make. Because I mean, if I start making too many more announcements, then I'm not going to be able to follow through and sort of keep you guys up to date with what's happening at Seahorse World. Basically, yeah, I'm just going to see out most of the month, and Friday the 25th is my last day here, and then I'm going to start the moving process, moving back to the mainland. So, yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and I'm very sort of grateful to have had the opportunity to come down here and do this and work with these amazing animals, and yeah, sort of work with all the cool stuff that I have and meet all the awesome people that I have and everything. So, yeah, unfortunately, I've been teasing some announcements for quite some time, and some of those obviously won't sort of pan out now the way that I wanted them to. But I think it's still exciting that there's scientific work going on to sort of reclassify some of these species or classify them more specifically, and they'll have more data and sort of genetic work to sort of go off and base their classification in future. So I think it's good and it's exciting for the hobby.
Yes, and Seahorse Australia Seahorse Australia will continue to be awesome, even without you, even though you made it awesome. And you're going to help me pressure Jimbo to start coming on Wednesday, right? Wink.
Come on, Jimmy.
Jimmy. But either way, I know you'll still keep us updated, and you have to do what's right for you, and we respect that. But it is cool that, Seahorse Australia is not only doing this now with Graham Short, but they do so many things to help and, promote science. I mean, they're constantly working with the schools and everything else to really help not just the hobby, but the world do better. So can't say enough good things about them. Red handfish, wink, wink, all these other cool things they're doing. But I'm just glad you were there and that you share all the time. And Jimbo's sweating it now, but we're going to keep bugging you, Jimbo. You got to be our Chris. But Chris, we still want you to, for sure. We want you to come back and tell us about your shrimp and just how you're doing, period, because we care about you. But I'll shut up now. I'm rambling.
Freak. He's a shrimp freak.
But that's what we need. Yeah. We need a shrimp freak.
Yeah, I'll see some new stuff.
Holly, what are you doing? You showing the tank?
I am. Yeah, I've been trying. Well, because normally where I sit when we're doing this is across from where I'm sitting now. It's almost like a narrow hallway between that seating arrangement and my tank. So it makes it kind of hard for me to show my tank. So basically,
you're sitting on the floor, aren't you?
Sitting on the floor.
I know, I did it too.
My tank is not very high because this is my grow out tank. So it's designed for me to be able to reach everywhere and get it really clean and reach the seahorses easily when I need to catch them and so on.
Is this tank sumped?
Very high.
Is this tank sumped?
Yeah, that's the sump I was showing earlier is the sump to this tank. So the sumps are almost identical, though. This is a 75-gallon tank, and my display tank is a 55-gallon tank. But they have the same exact sump arrangement.
Yeah. Hey, my nurseries have a 29-gallon sump.
Yeah, well, I'd like to have
it's overkill.
Actually,
it's overkill.
I don't know. I mean, to me, that's not a bad thing because the more water, the better I found in my systems. Like my very first Seahorse tank was 30 gallons. And I'll say now, in my mind, that's not enough. It's hard. It's hard.
I tell people that all the time.
A bigger tank, and the Seahorses are pretty big. I mean, like, she's what? That female, the yellow, that's probably good 7 inches or so. Yeah. They get big.
Oh, so well, the thing is, Erectus
brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Most people don't realize that Erectus can get to be over 9 inches.
The ones in the display tank, I think Dandy is about that size. He's about.
I was going to say about 9 inches. Mine got 12. Are you kidding me?
They get huge. Dandy's about 9 inches.
They can get quite large. Most people don't realize how large seahorses can get, but they're not looking at it from the fishy perspective, which says fishies say, "I grow throughout my entire life." Unlike us, we get it to a certain height and that's the end of it. Then you get shorter.
Yeah, they get bigger.
Well, the tank looks beautiful, Holly. It looks really beautiful.
Yeah, this is my beautiful tank. Like that's what, and this is not. I mean, was the grow out tank, so it's designed to be, a sterile environment for them. But
Yeah.
I like it better than my display tank, and it's easier to keep, and that's why I'm switching over gradually because
You going bare bottom?
it's been established for close to 4 years. And so the cleanup crew thing, the other stuff I put in there is coming to the end of their lifespans.
Right.
And I don't want to add more. I'm like, well, now's kind of the time to start changing it
Are you
over.
going bare bottom?
It
I'm
already
not
is, isn't it?
there. No, this one is, but the display tank is sand because I have the kind of creatures that like the sand. So the sand will stay at least as long as I have those animals still.
It all depends on what you want in your tank. You can do
Yeah.
sand and rock and creatures, or you can do sterile. It depends on your goals. It depends on what you want completely.
But yeah, because they like
That's why
to,
it's so hard.
the goby, he likes to tunnel in the sand and stuff. I'm sure, and that. So I'm trying to leave them, their environment that they enjoy, their habitat, while I'm changing it over to more enjoyable for the seahorses and myself, because they don't do anything with the rock anymore. Sadie has gotten over her hiding in the cave phase. She used to enjoy her cave, but she hasn't been hanging out there in a long time. They're more out and social now. They're getting older.
Yeah.
And
wait, I'm actually curious. I'm actually curious from Chris.
Mm-hmm.
In working for a company, obviously, your habitats were more focused on showing their natural habitats, and I know you were working on that specifically. I remember you were using fake plants, right? Did you have a preference between using fake plants and fake decorations versus live stuff, and why?
Yeah, so we were sort of forced. We're sort of forced by circumstance to use fake plants. So to get here in Tasmania, to get live plants would be so many hurdles to jump over, and the permits and everything that would be sort of needed to either collect or obtain either seagrasses, macroalgae, kelp, any sort of natural sort of real plant, or even mangroves, I guess, would be the cons outweigh the positives, if that makes sense. So
before I'm sorry to interrupt, but before you answer it completely, I should have said it better, because I understand that Australia has not ridiculous, but extreme rules about that kind of thing. But I meant like rock versus fake stuff. So rock and plants versus fake stuff. So you can't do the plants because of the rules, but rock you can do. So have you ever kept tanks with no rock that were just completely artificial? And what's your preference and why? And sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So just the permit system and everything makes keeping live plants and that sort of untenable, or sort of not sort of realistic, I guess. As well as the fact that we're trying to promote seahorse keeping and everything. So we basically want the seahorses to look happy, healthy, whatever, and dividing our focus and putting a lot of focus into keeping the plants alive and happy and thriving would detract from the amount of effort that we put into the seahorses, and so it just doesn't really sort of make too much sense for us. We are going to look into doing, or they are going to look into doing some coral displays and some other sort of more natural sort of live stuff down the track, but it's not going to happen with me here for the time being. So that's sort of more of a in the future sort of thing. But I'm a massive advocate for artificial all the way. I think with the range of artificial plants that you can get nowadays and artificial decorations, You know, there's so much variety, and you know, you can get some truly stunning looking decorations or displays with artificial stuff. And the added benefits of the artificial stuff is that you can literally just pull it out of the tank and basically dip it in sort of a chlorine solution and sterilize it. You know, give it a good rinse and dry afterwards, and chuck it back in, and she's ready to go for round 2. You don't have to worry about, you know, if you get sort of pest organisms on the natural plants, trying to remove them or trying to sterilize the system would not be viable. Whereas when you've got an artificial sort of plant setup, you can basically just take it out, nuke it all, and basically go back to square one and start again from scratch.
I totally agree with that.
So you guys don't use any rock, right?
We use rocks in some of our setups and that, but it depends on the history of the rock and what type of rock it is and where it's come from and what other tanks it's been in previously and everything. I'm very sort of anal retentive about pests and that sort of thing. So we do actually have some pests at Seahorse World that I've been trying to eradicate for years now, and they're not anywhere near as prevalent as what they were when I started 5 years ago, but I haven't managed to fully eradicate some of them the way I would have liked, but they're very much not as prevalent as they once were, and for the most part, they're not in any of our Seahorse displays. There is still one tank that has Aptasia, which is like the bane of my existence, but
I know.
Aside from that one small display, every other Seahorse display is 100% Aptasia free, and if I'd had a little bit more time in the COVID lockdown, that last display would have been the last one that I would have sorted out. But I can't currently remove all the Aptasia and sort it out the way that I would like whilst, you know, it's open and there's people coming through every day, and it's a tank that needs to be there and it needs to be in use. So I can't sort it out before I go, but maybe the guys might be able to organise it after I'm gone.
So I'm curious, what is your Aptasia nuking option? I'm just curious because we talked so many times about how
flamethrower. That's what I use on everything if they try to get into one of my tanks.
Yeah, definitely.
But on a large scale, like Chris was dealing with. Woo.
Basically, what I like to do is I like to remove the seahorses and anything living that I want to stay living from the display. Keep them in a temporary sort of quarantine tank or a hospital tank or whatever you like. And then basically remove all the salt water from the system, fill it all up with fresh water, dose it with more chlorine than you know you can sort of expect that they will be able to handle. I get very liberal with my chlorine dosing when I want everything in the system dead. And
hey, one gallon per 3 gallons.
Like just pour the whole thing in, and
I was just gonna say some of us can't replace 65, 40, and 75 gallons of water on a whenever we want basis. But no, I hear you.
Basically, if your eyes aren't watering from the amount of chlorine that's in the air, then obviously you're not using enough chlorine. But I like to go overkill and make sure the Aptasia is dead, and then I'll go through and like after the chlorine has been sitting in the system for an amount of time that I'm happy with. Usually I like to go overboard and make sure it's at least a few days, but I'm more than happy with about a week of just sitting in there and marinating it with the pumps on, making sure that it goes through all the pipe work, making sure it goes through any hoses and connections and plumbing and fittings, and just get chlorine everywhere and just really nuke it, really eat it all away. And then I tear down the system, basically scrub every single little innard and every single little nook and cranny from within it. You've got to get out a toothbrush or a sort of a pipe cleaner or other bits and pieces that sort of let you get into all those sort of tricky areas, and then basically fill it up with fresh water, try and get rid of any residual chlorine, even leave it sort of dry after that for a little bit, and then basically fill it up and start again from scratch.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Each one of my tanks has
wait. Let him. I interrupted him. Let Chris finish. Sorry.
So, and then at the time where you have to start it back up again, of course you won't have any sort of live bacteria or anything sort of living left in the system, which is the idea of it, of course. You basically, if you have some live bacteria on hand, using the system where you sort of have some put aside and sort of dose ammonia and whatnot, you always have live bacteria on hand, and you can set up a filter instantly. And so public aquariums use that trick so that we can set up display tanks or whatever without having to cycle them, an instant cycle setup, as it were. You still have to watch them for the first week or two and make sure that they're adequately dealing with the amounts of waste and that once you set it all back up again. But it's a really good way of just sterilizing it and just starting over from scratch. But you just need to be very thorough and very anal retentive and make sure that you remove every single little trace of Aiptasia and some of these other pests, because a lot of them divide through fragmentation. So if you get a scrubbing brush, or if you were to get a razor blade and cut it in half, those two halves
and there's spores. And I just want to say real quick, because I know Cheryl wants to talk, hobbyists. Let's talk after Cheryl talks, because someone like Holly couldn't do this if she has all her critters and everything in the tank. You can't do that. But go ahead, Cheryl.
The thing is, every single tank I have, they have their own siphon.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own pumps. They have their own wave makers.
Sure.
Basically, what I'm saying is nothing that is in one tank ever touches another tank. And
so
it's
there's no
critical because all it takes is one
drop of water.
Parasite.
Right. No, she's absolutely right. The only point I was,
because you touched over here and brought it there.
Yeah, you put your hand in the water. Yep.
And then, if I touch a tank, I scrub my hands and treat them with hydrogen peroxide.
We do have a couple more questions, guys. So the only thing I would say on that is, Chris, great explanation. But for any new hobbyist or seahorse keeper out there, if you've got snails, shrimp, he said you have to remove everything from the tank to use that method. It has to literally be drained of everything. The seahorses have to be in a separate situation. We've talked about other methods for Aiptasia.
Some types of bacteria can become aerosolized. So,
oh Lord, Cheryl! Oh no, what? Oh God!
So you can conceivably contaminate a tank that has another species sitting on the other end of the room, where you're blowing air bubbles in the tank, and it's becoming aerosolized.
Okay, well, anybody with a single seahorse tank, please don't worry about that. We talk about some really deep issues here. Sorry, but I'm just saying, for the extreme seahorse enthusiasts like we are, you're right with this. But anybody new, don't get scared. You can keep a seahorse tank without all these worries. I promise.
Well, a better tip for the newbies is to basically quarantine everything before it comes in. If you can avoid getting these pests and parasites and issues, then you don't have to worry about all of this stuff. So, I mean, it might be so tempting to just throw everything in your nice, beautiful new display tank and have it all, happy and running all from the word go from day one. But if you, bring in all your livestock, put it in a separate quarantine tank, observe everything and make sure that there's no nasty little hitchhikers on one of the tails of your seahorses or any other plants or rocks or other decorations or other bits and pieces that make their way into your tank, you can avoid having Aiptasia or any of these other sort of pests.
This is why everything I bring into my house undergoes a minimum of a 6-month quarantine, most of the time in a separate room. And it's one of those things where I put stuff under the microscope to see what's in the water.
And again, we've all discussed Cheryl's nuts. No, I'm just kidding. Cheryl's amazing, but I don't. But
it really is a good idea.
It is. It's not wrong, and we're all seahorse nuts. I was kidding, totally. I was just meaning that Francis asked. Actually, before I go to that, I'm kidding because Cheryl's amazing, and we appreciate all of her great advice. I'm just saying that if you're a new hobbyist and you're trying to set up a seahorse tank, quarantine doesn't, I mean, quarantine should be 6 months, but it doesn't have to be. One of the key tricks is if you quarantine macros, rock, and all that stuff, and then you actually put light over the tank that you're quarantining in and you feed the tank, then the aptasia will come out, because a lot of people will quarantine for multiple months and nothing happens because the rock's sitting in a bucket. But if you, the aptasia won't come out until they know there's a food source and they feel the light. So if you're going to quarantine, right, and bristle worms. But wait, we got to get through these questions.
Did you see the post that was posted with the massive, huge bristle worms that somebody got in their tanks?
No.
Yeah, Angela's bristle worms. I'm like, oh, I hate bristle worms.
Like,
I have them. I've had it. The thing you got to remember too, though, is if you have, reef type tanks and with your seahorses and stuff, some of these things are going to be really almost unavoidable. And if you started your tank
that's not true. Oh,
well,
okay,
if you
okay,
started your tank like me before you knew all this, you're going to have those things probably, but it's not the end of the world, because I've had them for years and I do things to, control them. But when I first I used to think, oh my gosh, there's a bristle worm in my tank. And it would worry me. I'm like, oh my God, somebody's going to.
If there's one, there's 100.
I've never had an issue with them.
See, Cheryl, you're scaring people.
They're there, but they haven't caused me any problems. I remove them, I fight them, I do, But like I said, that's why I think the easiest way is to go all artificial, and you don't have any of that extra stuff to deal with or worry about.
I totally agree with what everybody just said. And
it's nice to have a beautiful reef tank, but it's labor intensive to me.
Right, exactly. That's the point. We're not telling anybody who watches this channel what to do. We're giving what happens to us. We're giving our experiences.
Did you see my post?
Hang on, Cheryl. And I was just going to say that, if you want a beautiful macro tank like my first one, you can do it. It's just more labor intensive, as Holly just described. If you want to breed or to keep seahorses really for a long time, you're not looking for a pretty tank, then you go artificial, which is also pretty. But there's nothing wrong with either method, is my point. I don't want anybody watching this to ever think that we're trying to say you have to do it this way.
No, they all have pros and cons, and you kind of I've learned as I go what I like better.
Yes, exactly.
And I like looking at the reef tanks. Don't get me wrong; those are my favorite, but I don't like taking care of them.
Well, I was going to say my 40-gallon all-in-one, that I decided not to put the expensive lighting over and not to do macros and coral. Now I can't stand it. It's so bland. It's a bunch of rock and some seahorses. I'm getting ready to do exactly what you're doing and convert over to fake, because it's pretty without the work, because I don't want the work either. So I'm with you.
I'm going to see if you can see this. This is what I have.
Hey, you got to go, Cheryl.
Did you see what happened with Angela Gibbons? I think it was Angela Gibbons.
Hang on, Cheryl. Let's see what Holly's showing us. What, Holly?
Can you see my tank now? Because I can't see the computer.
Is it ready?
Yes,
so you see the bluish plant back there?
Yes.
So those are like plastic and silk plants, and they make some really cool ones. This one is all flowers, and it's really pretty. And the seahorses don't hang on to it all that much, but it makes a really pretty background.
It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Miss Cheryl, what were you going to say? I'm so sorry I cut you off.
Hey, guys, I need to eat some dinner. My son just cooked dinner for me. Oh.
We really so appreciate that you come and share all your wisdom and experience. I'm sorry when I cut you off. I don't mean to.
It's been a long week for me.
I know.
Aw.
I'm so glad you got the heater fixed and everything's gonna get better. We love you.
Can we all be like seahorses and come rush your dinner? Like everybody runs Sandy at his
Can
dinner.
I wrap my tail around your head and fight you for your dinner?
Well, good night, all. My son
night. We love you.
made dinner for me tonight.
Go eat that
All
wonderful
right.
dinner. And I just want to
Enjoy.
say, I want to say real quick to anybody watching, I overtalk everybody when I cut people off. These guys are my friends. They know that I'm just being myself. So please don't ever think that I am trying to be a jerk. We all overtalk each other. And Chris, are you still there? Is Chris still here?
I see he's here. He's just not on the camera right now.
Okay. Well, when he comes back, we'll ask him about.
Maybe.
When he comes, yeah, absolutely. When he comes back, we'll ask. We only got about 15 more minutes, guys, but we will ask about the inverts still being potential carriers and the peroxide. But there was a question I wanted to answer. I can't remember what it was. I think it was the pump for the K1 reactor. And let me get back to you on that because I remember I bought like 5 different ones. Just that the bigger you get,
keep it tumbling.
You have to keep it tumbling.
Bottle, so it has to be that strong. But depending,
and that's why I love the
isn't
adjustable
that big,
ones.
though, for that little bottle, is it? It's just a normal. Like you would use for a 10-gallon or a 20-gallon, probably.
Well, no. When I buy my pumps on Amazon for the 40-gallon, I make sure that it's rated for 50 gallons or above. That's my big trick. And I make sure it's adjustable so that I can turn the wheel. It's just a cheap one, but I can turn the wheel. And then if it starts looking like it's not tumbling very well, but that's not a good method. So I'm going to come up with a better method as far as calculations for you by next week. Okay. I'll remember it. I will. I'll make a note.
Better than others, I've noticed, because I got a bunch from Amazon that have the 2 outlets and the dial because they were cheap. But
right.
I'm finding some of the pumps that are so not as good looking, but they're more expensive, actually work better.
Right. Well, and
they don't
get
have
this.
the dial or the
right. But get this. I bought back when I was actually had a bunch of babies, not babies. I bought one of those industrial strength, like it's only probably this big and this wide, but it was an industrial strength that looks like steel, and it has like all these outlets. But the thing is, when you have these multiple outlets, if you don't need them all, there's no way to shut them off.
Yeah.
So you're just wasting all that energy and air. And
I use them. What I do is like I have a double one that's putting air into my sump, like into the bio balls, and I have 2 air lines going in, so that I use that other one. Yes, use it.
Well, I was looking for something that would tumble the media and be in a high enough rate and adjustable. And I wanted one with only 1 output, but apparently they don't make pumps with only 1 output for that amount of strength. I don't know. Hey, Chris, since you're back.
At the pet store, and it was expensive. I got it at PetSmart because it was an emergency. I needed it for a tank, and I couldn't wait for Amazon. So I went and bought one. I'm like, I'm paying too much for this darn pup. It works better than the ones it only has 1 outlet. But it costs like $30 instead of 12 or 15.
Right. You get what you pay for. Hey, Chris, since you're back, I'm going to jump subjects here. And Francis was back when we were talking about chlorine to knock out every adaptation in the tank. He asked, will inverts still be potential carriers if you move them out of the tank? So if you move them out of the tank, how do you solve that problem?
Well, it depends on what invert you're talking about. If you're talking about something like a hermit crab that has an external shell, but also has internal capacity, they could have all sorts of worms, aptasia, other bits and pieces sort of hitchhiking where you don't want them to. And the biggest thing is just to sort of quarantine them and observe as closely as you can every single sort of nook and cranny and surface on all of the animals or whatever you have sort of quarantined, and make sure that you're not sort of inadvertently, cleaning your tank, sterilizing it, whatever, and then move all your stuff from the quarantine tank back into your display tank, and then just reseed it with Aptasia or whatever pest all over again. It's
right.
just
That's
an
why I
ongoing
don't treat for ciliates. For me in the display tank, there's not a point, because I'm going to put them back in there and they're going to get it again from the things that are in the display tank. Because
Well,
I can't
you can
treat them, right?
you can
But
dilute.
the fish or the inverts.
You can dilute ciliates just via water changes, is my opinion. And the
Mhm.
other opinion is you can use a low dose formalin or peroxide to help in this method. We will be discussing peroxide
Mhm.
in the Ask Seahorse Source Part 3 that is coming this month. However, Francis did ask, is hydrogen peroxide safe to use to disinfect inverts, Chris?
That's a Dan question.
I would say no. Right off the bat,
No,
I would say
it's
no.
low dose. I mean, I low dose my tank, like we were just talking about, for that reason, for the ciliates.
Right,
I
you can
use
low dose
dose
it,
peroxide, but it's not.
but you can't dip them.
It's not, yeah, and it's not completely eradicating them. It's just
Right.
keeping the population down. Same with keeping your salinity low, and there's tricks, but they're not 100%. You would nuke your shrimp and everything if you use too much peroxide.
Invertebrates can be very, very sensitive compared to seahorses and other fish. So you got to be careful with what you treat them with.
Did you guys, I'm not asking any secrets here, but did you personally put inverts in your seahorse tanks, Chris?
I have one seahorse display that has some hermit crabs in another portion of the tank. So it's like a walled off tank, but they're in the same system. So it's the same water traveling through. And that's actually probably the source of where the Aptasia
problems
are in the system. But I do have some peppermint shrimp in some various other seahorse displays. They're just like a bit of a cleanup crew, and I just love the shrimpies. So,
well, and peppermint shrimp, like you said, they don't have that shell that's hiding anything underneath and possibly carrying things on top. So shrimp are a less likely culprit.
Well, and the peppermint shrimp, don't they eat Aptasia too?
They do eat Aptasia. Yeah, provided they're not too lazy. But yeah, usually they shouldn't have it on them as such. But it's not to say that other things can't come in on the shrimp. Even if they do eat Aptasia or whatever, you can still have things hitchhike on the surfaces of anything that you bring in that's new. So always sort of quarantine is my advice.
Well, sure, but I love the shrimp, the peppermints, man, and I have tricks, guys, if you want to know them. If you have Aptasia and you want to use peppermint shrimp to get rid of them, you have to get the right species, and you have to make sure they're hungry. That's the trick. Like, literally, don't feed the tank. Make sure the supplier keeps them hungry, and then once they get in the tank, don't feed the tank for a day, and your Aptasia starts to disappear, and then they get used to eating them. Anyways. Chris, also, Francis asked, any procedures you can recommend to eliminate hydroids?
Yeah, hydroids are a pain in the butt. They're kind of almost similar to Aptasia in a certain regard. They're just on a much smaller scale, but they're much less hardy, and you're not going to fragment them and regenerate them in the same way that you would with Aptasia. So manually sort of removing them, scrubbing them off any surfaces that they're in. It's not necessarily going to work in a display tank as well as you might think. When I'm, say, trying to remove hydroids from some of our setups, I'm able to physically get in, scrub every single surface, make sure it's all nice and clean, get rid of, flush it all out with water, empty, drain the whole setup, refill it back up with salt water like it's no one's business, and get it back up and going like that. Your average person doesn't have salt water on tap like we do, so they can't just do 100% water change like it's nothing.
Right.
So yeah, we have access to certain things like that makes it so much easier for us. But sort of manually scrubbing them would be my first suggestion, and siphoning any sort of remains. But that probably won't eliminate them 100%.
Well, I was going to say, what you're talking about is what I absolutely know, because like I've had a gorgonian that had a hydroid colony, little stems that had the hydroids coming out of it on the bottom of a gorgonian that you can pull out, scrub off, pick apart, whatever. But when it comes to the little shits on the glass that look like little spiders, oh my God,
Yeah.
sorry. But we have talked about fenbidazole. I'll find that video and link it in the description, and we can always talk about it in the future. But we need Dan because I don't know the precise amounts off the top of my head. Wine. It's
Yeah,
wine
we
Wednesday.
can't actually get that here in Australia, so I haven't had access to try that either. So yeah, that's why we use the method that we use. But yeah.
Okay, let me see what else we have. Okay, when you're scrubbing live rock, do you use salt water when rinsing and scrubbing to minimize the bacteria death, or dechlorinated tap water, or what?
Well, if I was trying to clean live rock, I mean, just me and my circumstances, I would actually kind of give it a really good hose down, like not quite a pressure wash, but like a very strong sort of mechanical clean with water, and make sure you're removing everything from it, anything that might be living on the surface. So I'm always paranoid about things like aptasia or whatever. So I give them a very, very strong hose down, and the water pressure is physically strong enough that it will remove any soft tissue like an aptasia or whatever from the rock surface. And I try and get in every little nook and cranny and try and wash it all off the surface of the rock using fresh water. So that's usually enough for us, but you could use other methods. You could sort of just pull out the rock and leave it to dry in the sun, or you could just sort of mechanically scrub everything in a bucket with some salt water or whatever if you were trying to keep the beneficial bacteria alive in there. Or you could have some beneficial bacteria stored somewhere else and then cycle the tank instantly that way.
Right, exactly. And I think the key to everything you were just saying is that if you need that rock, if that's your biological filtration, you don't want to dry it out or bleach it or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You got to just scrub it with a toothbrush out of the tank and all that crazy maintenance. If you have other filtration like K1, say, then you have a backup and you can, take rock out and bleach it. Holly, did you have something to say?
Well, I was just if you look up like online, because I've used a few different methods. There's a bunch of ways to do it depending on what problem you're trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
Like I've used like club soda for bristle worms, peroxide for algae, but there's specific directions, like specific percentages and how many minutes to leave it in or seconds even, and it's a pain in the butt, which is why I don't want to do live rock anymore.
Right.
But there's ways to eliminate whatever it is you're trying to get rid of, and there's lots of stuff in aquarium forums and YouTube and stuff about all the different ways.
Yes, and I'm still constantly working to get.
I think Cheryl was talking about just scrubbing them in salt water, like scrubbing off the algae and stuff and putting them back in. So it depends on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to clean.
And a lot of these lists and amounts and everything are found in Seahorses group. Mm-hmm. And I'm desperately working to get this website finished, guys. So we'll have all the information in one area. You know me, it just takes me forever. But Chris, Francis, I see you laughing at me, but Francis wants to know what shrimp you're interested in, what shrimp you've worked with.
I'm in my own spare time. I'm very interested in a whole range of different shrimp. I have my personal favorites, and I have the opposite of that, whatever that is. Some shrimp are awesome in my books, and some shrimp are just jerks. I mean, mysid shrimp are awesome. I feel kind of sad feeding them out to seahorses all the time. So that's actually one aspect of leaving seahorses.
They eat each other.
But basically, I'm not a big fan of things like mantis shrimp. Mantis shrimp are jerks.
Yes.
They're basically a shrimp that just goes around punching things and breaking things and killing things. So they're jerks. Pistol shrimp are really, really cool. But yeah, there's so many shrimp out there, and one of the like unrelated topic, but working at Seahorse World has meant living in Tasmania for me, and it basically means that I'm limited to what shrimp I can legally have here in Tasmania.
Right.
Tasmania, Western Australia, and the Northern Territory are 3 states in Australia that are super strict on what shrimp you can even keep at home in your own spare personal time. And I mean, Australia is kind of hard enough as is with regard to what shrimp we have available. Like, we can't bring shrimp in from overseas because that's just not a thing here in Australia. Luckily, we have enough shrimp here in Australia that we do have quite a large amount to draw from. But we've got all the shrimp that are currently here, and basically, I'm going to start looking at keeping some of those that I used to keep, and sort of doing them in my own personal time for my own enjoyment.
But there are multiple species. You guys have multiple.
Oh, there's so many different species. I could start listing them all off, but
no, right.
It's just one of those things. I'll just start keeping and sort of breeding and raising and sort of whatever shrimp interests me at the time, and basically.
And he'll come on Wine Wednesday and tell us all about him.
Maybe.
Maybe. No.
Maybe.
Anyways.
I have a question for you, Chris. Do you do any freshwater shrimp?
Yeah, like I used to keep and breed all sorts of freshwater shrimp before I moved down to Tasmania, and like your cherry shrimp, your crystal shrimp. There's Taiwan bee shrimp, there's tiger shrimp, there's Sulawesi shrimp. There's all these different types of shrimp, glass shrimp and whatnot. And aside from the glass shrimp that you catch down in rock pools and in the ocean and rivers here in Tasmania, we're very limited in what shrimp we can actually keep or even have legally in your tanks at home. So I'm really looking forward to going back to the mainland and having access to all these shrimp that I haven't been able to have for 5 years.
So I have a question for you then. Can you recommend a freshwater shrimp that would be good, like in a peaceful aquarium environment? Like I have Cory catfish and
Cory catfish actually like eating shrimp.
Wait, what did you say?
Shrimp.
Corys love eating shrimp.
Yeah, don't want that.
No.
So no shrimp for them.
I mean, you can keep.
Unless I want to eat them.
Unless they're dinner. Right.
You can keep dwarf Corydoras, like the tiny little Corydoras that are like this big. You can keep those with some types of shrimp that grow just as big or bigger than they do. But most Corydoras will eat shrimp. They actually love shrimp.
I imagine mine would. No, mine are probably a good inch or so.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger than an inch.
Yeah.
I think they would probably be that.
Chris, Francis said Australia sounds like California. Would you compare it?
Well, probably not. I mean, it's probably strict in the same regard, but I'd say that Australia is probably more strict than California. At least you guys, I mean, California is one state. At least you guys can, in the US currently, you can bring in things from all around the world,
right.
with very sort of low threshold sort of paperwork attached to it. Whereas here in Australia, we can't bring in anything from overseas in that regard. And so I would say that the situation is quite different. Tasmania is maybe a little bit like California in a state-to-state sort of comparison, but in that we have a lot of red tape and sort of very harsh restrictions and sort of things prohibiting us from doing the things we want to do. But yeah, Australia overall.
You guys have it worse.
Very different to the US. And I've been telling you guys on One Wednesdays for years now that, enjoy having so few restrictions or whatever. If these sort of changes that they've been talking about, you guys are going to be in the same boat as we are.
I know. Shit's about to, stuff is about to change. Seriously, it's not going to be good. Okay. Last thing, because I got to call it for the night, you guys. I love talking to you guys. We could talk all night, and I'm so happy that Chris joined. But Francis mentioned vampire shrimp and bamboo shrimp are freshwater options. But would they be eaten by the Corys?
He says they're big enough to ward off the fish.
The bamboo shrimp are probably big enough, but you would still have them vulnerable whenever they molt. So whenever they cast off their old shell and have to harden up a new shell underneath, that's when they'd be vulnerable. And if you've got a whole bunch of hungry Corys at the time, they might pick off that poor little shrimp.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, listen, I'm going to have to call it for tonight. It's me, not them. I'm so sorry. The wine, we'll blame the wine. However, we will be back next week. We'll pull Chris in. Don't worry. Even though he's making changes in his life, we'll rope him back in. We'll get him back to talk about shrimp. We'll get Jimbo in here for sure. And we'll have some future chats. If you have any questions about seahorses, anything you liked, anything you have future questions about, put them in the comments. I'll make sure to link those links I promised. And we'll be back next week for sure. And I'll announce any future guests to maybe talk about laws and or when we do the Ask Seahorse Horse. Or maybe we'll have to start an Ask Chris about shrimp. We'll see. But you guys raise your glasses. I'm going to have to end it. I'm so sorry, guys, but I have to end it, kids. All right. Everybody say cheers. Good night.